Hello everybody. We're going to work on the cash budget. The cash budget is going to pull from the data we've already computed. So we had sales and then we collected some, and the cash collected goes in the cash budget. We had some expenses, some of which were paid. We had purchases, some of which were paid. Those payments are cash out, cash disbursements. So the cash in and the cash out creates the cash budget. And then we can see at the end of each quarter, do we have enough cash? And if not, do we need to borrow? And if we have borrowed and now we have excess cash, can we repay? So let's just review for a minute the data that was given to us regarding the rules about cash. So this is under the cash management section. The bank requires a minimum of $10,000. So even if we have, let's say, $4,000 or $8,000 left at the end of a quarter, that's not enough. We would have to borrow to get up to the $10,000. That's just a rule given. It's not a computation. Okay, but we have to honor it. Borrowing must be in increments of 1,000. So if you need $732.18, you've got to go up to the next round 1,000. And the annual interest rate, so when you borrow and repay, when you repay, you pay the interest. Borrowings occur on the first day of the quarter and repayments on the last day of the quarter. All right, so let's remember now we're not going to type in any amounts. We're going to link to all of our work because that's linked to the original assumptions. And if the client changes an assumption, we want the cash budget to update. All right, beginning cash, where would that be? That's going to be on your beginning balance sheet. What was cash at the beginning of the year? Let's go see. Cash is that number right there, and then hit enter. Cash receipts, what was collected from customers? Let's go see. Go to our Sales and Collections tab. What was collected? Right here. Right here. Cash available, that's what you started with, plus what you collected, that's available to pay bills. All right, let's write, what are the payments, not the expense. What are the payments? Remember, one of the big ideas in 204 and Principles of Accounting 1 was that sales and collections are not always the same, and expenses or payments are not always the same. So payments for materials, we mapped that out when we did the materials budget. Here was what we bought for containers and wax, and down here we scheduled out the payments. So we need to do a subtotal here before I can link it here. I guess we were lazy, didn't create that. So we will do that now. We did the work, but we didn't do the subtotal for payments. Okay. Very good. So now I have it by quarter, so I can go back here and link it. First quarter, payments for materials, payments for labor. Now we got to go to the labor budget. Of course, you can't inventory labor, so the labor incurred and the labor paid would be the same. All right, what do we pay for manufacturing overhead? Over to the manufacturing overhead budget. Here's our manufacturing overhead for the first quarter. Selling and administrative. This is the part, we're going to link to that. This is the part where we had to add back depreciation because it's not a payment. Subtract out depreciation because it's not a payment. So we wouldn't pick total selling and administrative expenses, which is line 13. That's going to go in the income statement because all expenses paid or unpaid go there. But here we would use the disbursements or payments for selling and administrative. Dividends, that's what management told us. That's in the story. Where are dividends? There they are, $250 per quarter. That can change. That can absolutely change. So we have to link to the original data. Taxes, what did they tell us to assume for taxes? Let's go back here. Taxes, income tax payments, $5,000 in quarter 4. So no taxes in the first quarter. What about equipment? Let's go over here, see what they tell us. Equipment purchases, $6,000 in quarter one only. Okay, so those won't be in every quarter. Total cash disbursements now. We add all of that up, and there we go. So then we have either an excess or deficiency of cash. And of course, that doesn't mean we actually have overdrawn the checking account, because this is the budget we're forecasting forward, which is good, because if we're going to have a quarter that's short, we know in advance to contact the bank and get that worked out. Now, do we have enough? Well, we're not overdrawn. That's real good. What is the required minimum cash balance? $10,000. And we have to borrow in increments of 1,000. So I don't have 10,000 yet. So I'm going to have to borrow. And I can only borrow in 1,000. So I can borrow 1,000, then I'd be at 8,000. That's not enough. I could borrow 2,000. Then I'd be at 9,000. Not enough. So I'm going to have to borrow 3,000. Now this is the only part that's manual. And it's in here in red. Review borrowing with any change in data assumptions. This is manual. This is the only place you're going to type it in, which means every time you have a new iteration, you make a change, you have to go back here and review and see if that's the right borrowing. We could write a very complicated formula to figure that out with if statements and things that are more advanced in Excel. But we're not going to do that. We don't have any cash to make repayments. We borrowed. We're not going to repay the interest until we repay the borrowings. So the total impact of financing is a positive 3,000, and ending cash is what we had before financing. And so there we are. And we've met the rule of having at least 10,000 in ending balance. So now we know what the beginning of quarter two cash is, because that's the end of quarter one. Now we can have a little bit of fun with formulas. Since we linked this, we can copy that across. And that will be, and you can verify, that will be second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter. Well, let's look. Is that collections? Did that work? Let's verify. Collections. First quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. And so now we can, this formula adds those together. So cash available is beginning plus collections. We can't do this one. We won't know beginning cash for quarter three till we've solved for ending cash of quarter two. All right, materials we can copy across. We can copy across labor and flip back and verify. Manufacturing overhead. Selling administrative, same thing. We can copy that across. Dividends, we can't copy that across. Oh, actually, yeah, it doesn't flip over, right? Let's verify. Right, see, if we copied across, we get this trash. We will have to override the relative reference on that one. We could do that. We remember how to do that. Click in the address up above and hit F4, or put your $signs in if you're working on a Mac. All right. Taxes is just one amount in the fourth quarter, so that's something we remember for just reviewing that a minute ago. Income tax in the fourth quarter. And purchase equipment was only in the first quarter, so there's nothing to do. But this formula will capture all the things that we've populated, so we can do disbursements for all 4 quarters. All right, so we can only do the excess or deficiency for quarter two, because quarter three we can't really start till we finish quarter two. All right, do we have enough cash? We have more than 10,000. We won't be borrowing. Okay, now there is a loan of 3,000 from last quarter. Do we have enough cash to repay it? We do, because we can repay it and still have, we've got to repay the interest. Interest was 4% a year, so that's 1% a quarter, and we'll link to that. So there, times 4% divided by 4. There will always be 4 quarters in a year, so that's one of the few things that you can type in. Months of a year, quarters in a year, things that won't change regardless of those assumptions. Oops, we should put this in as a negative. Paying interest is always going to be an outflow. All right, so let's see. Ending. So just to verify, we have over the 10,000 minimum. Very good. So now we know the beginning for quarter 3. All right, so now we can get the beginning plus the collection. So we know the cash available. We can calculate here the ending cash, which is the cash available less the payments that were made. So cash is building. That's exciting. So we've got way over the 10,000 minimum. We paid off the debt. So there's nothing more to do here. Financing is just 0. And in Excel, a 0 looks like a dash. You can format it to look like a 0, but that's its default when it's set under monetary, under dollars and cents. Okay, quarter 4 starts with the end of quarter 3. We can now get cash available, beginning plus collected. And then we know the disbursements. You can already visually tell that cash is building. So that's fantastic. All right. And then for the year, the beginning cash balance is not the sum of all these. We started the year with the amount at the beginning of the 4th quarter. Now, collections is for the whole year, so we can add that all up. And so cash available for the year is what we started the year with, plus all the collections for the year. All right, and then direct materials, we can add the payments up. All right, very good for the whole year. And then we can get that total. And then we can get the excess of cash in the beginning of the year, plus all the collections, less all of the payments, including taxes and dividends and purchases of equipment. We have no borrowing going on here, but you could certainly show that activity. It guessed wrong, didn't it? So now I have to tell it what I really meant. There we go. And this is a nice check figure because this column is not just the sum of the first 4 quarters. This was the beginning of the year. And so this down here, if you've done it correctly, should equal the ending cash for the year should be the same as the ending cash for the 4th quarter. So there is your cash budget. Just a reminder that the borrowing and repaying was done manually. So if you make a change because you're doing some investigation and you're doing something for your client, always come back and visit this. But since we linked everything else, that is the only thing you're going to have to come do manually. As you get more advanced in Excel, or if you're already advanced in Excel and you want to put the if statement in there and do a formula, you are welcome to do that. Alrighty, we'll be doing the income statement next.